I felt his fingers trace the edge of my skirt, a gentle touch that sent electricity through my entire body. The quiet library around us seemed to fade away as he leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "There's something I want to show you," he whispered, his voice carrying decades of stories I'd never heard. At 66, I thought I knew all there was to know about desire, but Harold was about to teach me otherwise. His hand lingered just where propriety suggested it shouldn't, and I found myself leaning into his touch rather than pulling away. Before we dive deeper into this unexpected chapter, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The autumn evening had settled over our small Maine town like a familiar blanket, and I found myself walking toward the old brick library with more purpose than I'd felt in months. Harold had called earlier about a rare first edition I'd been seeking, something about local maritime history that had captured my imagination. At my age, you'd think such pursuits would feel academic, but there was something thrilling about the hunt for knowledge, the discovery of hidden gems. The library's heavy oak doors creaked as I pushed them open, breathing in that intoxicating scent of aged paper and leather bindings. Harold emerged from behind the circulation desk, his silver hair catching the warm lamplight. At 71, he moved with the careful grace of someone who'd spent a lifetime among books, his hands gentle but sure as they handled precious volumes. "Ruth," he said, and there was something in the way he spoke my name that made me pause. "I've found what you were looking for." He led me deeper into the stacks, past the familiar sections I'd browsed countless times. The late hour meant we were alone, the building wrapped in that particular quiet that only libraries possess. His fingers brushed mine as he handed me a slim volume, and I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the book's aged leather binding. "This is extraordinary," I murmured, opening to pages filled with detailed illustrations of ships and coastal scenes. "How did you find it?" Harold moved closer, close enough that I could catch the subtle scent of his aftershave mingled with the mustiness of old books. "I have my ways," he said softly. "But there's more. Would you like to see the special collection?" I looked up at him, noting the way his eyes seemed to hold secrets. "I'd love to." He guided me toward a narrow staircase I'd never noticed before, hidden behind a towering shelf of maritime histories. My heart quickened, not from the climb, but from the intimate atmosphere we'd somehow created. The stairs led to a small room filled with climate-controlled cases and reading tables bathed in soft amber light. "This is beautiful," I breathed, setting the book down on a reading table. I had no idea this space existed. Harold closed the door behind us with a soft click. "Very few people know about it. It requires special access." There was something in his tone that made me turn to face him fully. We stood there for a moment, the weight of years and unspoken attraction settling between us like dust motes in lamplight. I'd known Harold for over a decade, had exchanged pleasant conversation and book recommendations, but I'd never seen this side of him, confident, almost predatory in the gentlest way. "Ruth," he said, stepping closer, "I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you've been on my mind quite a bit lately." My breath caught. "Harold, the way you appreciate literature, the passion in your voice when you talk about a particularly moving passage." His hand rose to trace the line of my jaw with remarkable tenderness. "It's intoxicating. I should have stepped back, reminded him that we were both past the age for such foolishness. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, my body responding to something I'd thought was long dormant. "We shouldn't," I whispered, even as my hand came to rest on his chest. "Shouldn't what?" he asked, his thumb brushing across my lower lip. "Shouldn't acknowledge that desire doesn't have an expiration date, that connection transcends age?" Before I could answer, his lips found mine in a kiss that was both gentle and urgent. Years of careful propriety melted away as I responded, my hands tangling in his silver hair. He tasted of peppermint tea and possibility, and when he pulled back, I was breathless. "God, Ruth," he murmured against my forehead. "You have no idea how long I've wanted to do that." His hand settled on my waist, fingers spreading across the fabric of my blouse with reverent care. I felt beautiful under his gaze, not despite my age, but because of the depth it had given me. The stories written in every line and curve. "Show me," I whispered. Harold's eyes darkened with understanding. He guided me to sit on the edge of the reading table, positioning himself between my knees. His hands traced the length of my arms, drawing goosebumps in their wake before settling on my thighs. "You're exquisite," he said, his voice rough with want. "Every day you've walked into my library, I've wondered what it would be like to touch you properly." His fingers found the hem of my skirt, tracing patterns along my legs that made me shiver. The fabric whispered as it rode higher, and I felt exposed in the most delicious way. Harold took his time, mapping the landscape of my body with the same careful attention he'd shown rare manuscripts. "Is this what you want?" he asked, his hand pausing at the elastic of my undergarments. "Yes," I breathed, surprised by the conviction in my voice. Harold's touch was reverent as he explored me, his fingers awakening sensations I'd forgotten I could feel. My head fell back as he worked with patient skill, building tension with the same methodical approach he brought to cataloging. Every caress sent heat spiraling through me, and when he leaned down to press his lips to my throat, I couldn't suppress a soft sound of pleasure. "That's it," he murmured against my skin. "Let me hear you." His mouth traced a path along my collarbone while his hands continued their gentle exploration. I felt myself opening to him, not just physically, but emotionally, letting go of decades of careful restraint. The reading table supported me as my body arched toward his touch, seeking more of the warmth he offered. Harold straightened, his hands moving to the buttons of my blouse with practiced ease. "You're so beautiful, Ruth, so alive." The cool air kissed my skin as fabric parted, but Harold's warmth quickly replaced it. His hands cupped my form with reverence, thumbs tracing patterns that made me gasp. I reached for him in return, fingers working at his shirt buttons with trembling urgency. "Easy," he whispered, catching my hands in his. "We have all the time in the world." But time felt suspended in this amber-lit sanctuary. Harold's shirt joined my blouse on a nearby chair, and I marveled at the solid strength of him, the way silver hair dusted his chest. He was beautiful in the way only mature men could be, confident in his skin, comfortable with desire. He positioned himself closer, and I felt the evidence of his want pressing against me through the remaining barriers of clothing. The sensation made me bold, and I wrapped my legs around his waist, drawing him nearer. "Ruth," he groaned, his control slipping. "You're going to be the death of me." I smiled, feeling powerful and feminine in a way I'd almost forgotten. What a way to go. Harold's laugh was low and rich as he began to move against me, the friction building heat between us. His hands gripped my hips, guiding the rhythm as we found our pace together. The reading table creaked softly beneath us, a whispered soundtrack to our private symphony. Time became fluid as we explored each other with growing confidence. Harold's mouth found sensitive spots I'd forgotten existed, while his hands mapped territory long neglected. I felt myself building toward something profound, my body remembering rhythms I'd thought were lost to time. "Let go," Harold whispered against my ear. "I've got you." And I did, trusting him completely as sensation crested over me in waves that left me trembling and breathless. Harold followed soon after, his body shuddering against mine as he found his own release. We stayed entwined for long moments, breathing heavily in the warm silence of the hidden room. Harold's fingers traced lazy patterns on my back while I listened to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "That was," I began, then trailed off, lacking adequate words. "Overdue," Harold finished, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. Eventually, we disentangled ourselves and began the careful process of dressing. But there was no awkwardness in our movements, no regret in the glances we shared. Instead, there was a comfortable intimacy, as if we'd finally acknowledged something that had always been there. "Will you come back?" Harold asked as we prepared to leave the sanctuary. I smiled, straightening his tie with affectionate care. "Try to keep me away." The next morning brought autumn sunshine and the delicious soreness of well-used muscles. I hummed as I prepared coffee, feeling more alive than I had in years. When Marge knocked on my door for our usual morning walk, I answered with a smile that apparently gave everything away. "Ruth Henderson," she said, studying my face with shrewd eyes. "You look different." "Do I?" I asked innocently, though I could feel the flush creeping up my neck. Marge's eyes narrowed. "You're practically glowing. What happened to you?" I busied myself with pouring coffee, but Marge wasn't easily deterred. She'd been my friend for over 30 years and knew my tells better than anyone. "Was it the library?" she pressed. "You said you were going to see Harold about that book." The coffee cup slipped slightly in my hands. "Just a successful research session." "Research session," Marge repeated slowly. "Is that what we're calling it now?" I turned to face her, unable to suppress my smile. Harold showed me his special collection. Marge's eyebrows shot toward her hairline. His special collection? A private reading room. Very intimate setting. Understanding dawned in Marge's eyes, followed by something that looked suspiciously like envy. "Ruth Henderson, you didn't." "Didn't what?" I asked, feigning innocence. "You know exactly what. How was it?" "No, wait, don't answer that." "Actually, do answer that. I haven't lived vicariously through anyone in months." I laughed, feeling giddy and young. "It was educational." "Educational," Marge muttered. "The woman discovers passion at 66 and calls it educational." She leaned forward conspiratorially. Details. I need details. I shook my head, but I was still smiling. A lady doesn't kiss and tell. Oh, there was kissing. I knew it. You have that well-kissed look about you. Marge practically bounced in her chair. Good for you, Ruth. It's about time someone recognized what a catch you are. The warmth in her words touched something deep in my chest. For too long, I'd felt invisible, relegated to the role of widow and grandmother. Harold had reminded me that I was still a woman with desires and the right to pursue them. Are you seeing him again? Marge asked. Tonight? I admitted. He's cooking. Dinner. Marge clasped her hands together. A man who cooks. Ruth, you might want to hold on to this one. That evening, I found myself standing in front of my closet with the kind of nervous energy I hadn't felt in decades. What did one wear to dinner with a lover at my age? The thought made me giggle. Lover seemed such a young word, but that's what Harold was becoming, wasn't it? I settled on a flowing dress in deep blue, something that flattered my figure without trying too hard. When Harold opened his door, the appreciation in his eyes told me I'd chosen well. You look stunning, he said, drawing me into his arms for a kiss that made my knees weak. His house surprised me with its warmth. I'd expected the home of a lifelong bachelor to feel stark, but Harold had filled it with books, art, and comfortable furniture that invited lingering. The scent of something delicious wafted from the kitchen. Coq au vin, he said, noticing my appreciative sniff. I hope you don't mind that I showed off a little. I love a man who cooks, I said, then blushed at my boldness. Harold's smile was knowing. Good thing I love a woman who appreciates good food. Dinner was a revelation. Not just the food, which was exceptional, but the easy conversation that flowed between us. We talked about books, travel, the small adventures still available to us at our age. Harold had a way of making me feel heard, his attention focused entirely on me in a way that felt both flattering and arousing. I have a confession, he said as we lingered over wine. Yesterday wasn't entirely about the book. No? I asked, though I'd suspected as much. I've been wanting to ask you out for months. The book was just an excuse to get you alone. I felt a flutter of pleasure at the admission. And here I thought you were just being helpful. Oh, I'm always helpful, Harold said, his eyes twinkling, with mischief. Sometimes just not in the ways people expect. After dinner, he led me to his living room, where a fire crackled in the hearth. We settled on his couch with the natural ease of longtime lovers, though we'd known each other intimately, for less than 24 hours. I want to know everything about you, Harold said, his fingers tracing patterns on my arm. Your dreams, your fears, what makes you laugh at 3 a.m? That's a tall order, I said, but I found myself opening up to him in ways I hadn't with anyone in years. We talked until the fire burned low, sharing stories and quiet laughter. When Harold finally kissed me again, it felt like coming home. This time, we took the stairs to his bedroom, where moonlight streamed through, sheer curtains and cast everything in silver. Harold undressed me slowly, reverently, as if I were a precious gift to be unwrapped with care. His hands traced every curve and line with appreciation, making me feel beautiful and desired. When he laid me back on his bed, I felt like a goddess being worshipped. You're magnificent, he whispered, his mouth following the path his hands had traced. I arched beneath his touch, marveling at how alive my body felt. Every caress sent heat spiraling through me, building towards something intense and necessary. Harold took his time, mapping my responses with the patience of a scholar studying a beloved text. When he finally joined with me, it was with a gentleness that brought tears to my eyes. We moved together in the moonlight, finding rhythms that spoke of tenderness and passion in equal measure. This wasn't the frantic coupling of youth, but something deeper, richer, the joining of two people who understood the preciousness of connection. Afterward, we lay entwined in the silver light, our breathing gradually returning to normal. Harold's fingers traced lazy patterns on my shoulder while I listened to the steady beat of his heart. Stay, he murmured against my hair. Yes, I whispered, meaning it completely. The weeks that followed were a revelation. Harold and I fell into an easy rhythm. Dinners at his house, long walks through town, quiet evenings reading together in the library after hours. Our physical connection deepened too, each encounter teaching us new things about pleasure and intimacy. Marge watched our developing relationship with obvious delight, occasionally making comments about research sessions that made me blush and laugh. The whole town seemed to approve, treating our courtship with the warm acceptance small communities reserve for love stories. You know, Harold said one evening as we sat in his garden watching the sunset, I never thought I'd find something like this at my age. What's that? I asked, though I suspected I knew. Love, he said simply. Real, deep, change your whole world love. My heart swelled at his words. Neither did I. Harold turned to face me, his expression serious. I love you, Ruth Henderson. All of you, your mind, your heart, your beautiful body, the way you make me feel alive again. I love you too, I said, surprised by how easily the words came. When Harold kissed me then, with the garden blooming around us and the promise of evening ahead, I felt like the heroine of every romance novel I'd ever read. Sometimes the best chapters come when you least expect them, and sometimes love arrives not with the rush of youth, but with the deep satisfaction of perfect timing. Who knew that a simple trip to the library could rewrite the entire story of my life? Have you ever discovered something unexpected when you thought you were just looking for information? Sometimes the best treasures aren't in the books, they're in the people who help us find them. Tell me about your most surprising discoveries in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about finding love in the most unexpected places. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. Thanks for reading, and remember, it's never too late to start a new story.